Hey, I got a question following up about the post-resurrection eschaton, specific to the state of the wicked or those who have fully rejected Jesus in this life. So my understanding of your view is like everyone is universal, like Jesus universally recapitulated human nature, so everybody gets resurrected, immortal, imperishable, incorruptible. So, do the wicked experience physical pain or decay if they're resurrected in a body like that of Jesus?
Yeah, what we believe is that the experience that they have is a bad experience. So even though they're resurrected, the presence of God, which is a good presence, because they're evil, it torments them. So that is what the river of life or river of fire is that the river of life is the river of fire to the wicked because they have rejected God and become his enemy and they hate him from all eternity. So they have a what Maximus calls a ever ill being, whereas the righteous, because they participated in divine life, have ever well-being.
Okay, is that just experienced in like a spiritual sense or in their
I would imagine that the
body?
body, which they misused and mistreated, also becomes a source of dis-ease and displeasure for them.
Okay, so then you would say it is different than the resurrected actual like physical
Well,
nature
angels,
of
for
Jesus
example,
and Christians.
angels never lost their angelic nature, but they will experience an angelic form of torture and torment for an eternal angel nature. So the natures don't have to change. Just like human nature, we have the same nature that Adam had and that Jesus has, but this body can experience pain and can experience disease in this life. And so the only difference is that in the eschaton, all people get ever being, but not everybody gets ever well being. Only the righteous do.
Okay.
So it is like Jesus' body in some respects, but unlike Jesus' body in other respects.
And then I would assume you would not say that they are impassible, like they're able to experience, they're probably going to be like sad and experiencing negative emotions on a soul level endlessly.
I mean, Jesus seems to describe it that way, so I don't know that impassibility would be. I don't even know that that our bodies necessarily become impassible. I mean,
Okay,
impassible means
like that's just the divine nature.
we're resurrected in bodies and we walk around and do stuff in the eschaton. So that to me suggests that it's in some way changeable. It changes positions and location.
Okay, and then like on to, since having a will and a free will is part of our nature, what about like the wicked? Do they will multiple evils, or are they only able to will multiple goods, but they just
No, I
don't
think
like
they.
it because they don't want to cooperate with
I
God, or
think
like
they.
how does that work?
I think like the evil angels, they have fixed their will upon continually willing evil. So there's no possibility of willing the good. So I don't know how. I don't know whether they will multiple evils or not, but probably like the angels, their wills are fixed on consistently willing evil.
Okay, so then is there still deception left in their mind or soul?
What do you mean deception left in it? What do you mean?
I don't know, like, I guess I think of evil and deception as something that doesn't really have a substance or a
Correct. I
source.
agree.
So in the eschaton, it's hard for me to understand how people are still willing evil if God is all in all. Like, where is the evil
In
coming
the
from?
same
If
way
they're in the
that
full presence of God, how can they still remain deceived, and how can they still be willing evil things?
because they chose to fix their will in a state of rejection of God, and so God's presence to them is a torment and not something that they can ever choose virtue again from. So in other words, the mode of willing, which is personal, is what determines the experience of the eschaton, and that's dependent upon whether you recapitulated the virtues, Maximus says, or whether you chose vice and thus became an enemy of God and hated God. So if you chose to be an enemy and hated God, then you chose that as your fixed state.
Yeah, I understand his view and yours. It's hard for me to understand how God can be all in all if those people are just fixed in evil. But I appreciate your
They're not.
answer.
So their evil is not a thing that you get fixed in because their natures are still good, but they are perpetually willing, like the fallen angels, against the good. So
yeah. Okay. And then my last question is
are you a universalist? Is that what you're getting at?
No, I'm not.
What's your position?
I believe, as Irenaeus believed, that the wages of sin is death, and so the wicked will not be raised immortal, and they will undergo a second death. And it's only those who are baptized into Christ who will be raised imperishable and immortal.
So you don't believe in a general resurrection?
I believe that there's a resurrection of the just and the unjust, and everyone will stand before God. But
what's the basis?
Irenaeus believed like the unjust are resurrected into the same type of body that they lived in this life, and he believes undergo a second death.
But he believes in recapitulation. So what's the basis for resurrection?
Being in Christ.
So how are they resurrected? 15, I know what it says. How are they resurrected?
Is for those who are in Christ.
So
who receive a heavenly divine nature.
So Christ didn't assume universal human nature?
Christ has a universal salvific will, and his...
What did he assume in the incarnation?
Death.
So he didn't assume the whole of Adam's nature?
He did. And so, like, the invitation is open for everyone.
No, I'm talking about
to
ontologically.
Be resurrected in him.
Ontologically, did he assume universal human nature? Because you just said that the wicked are resurrected. On what basis?
I guess because they, like, need to be judged.
Okay, but Paul says there's no basis for being resurrected other than in Christ.
Okay.
So in 1 Corinthians 15, when Paul talks about the extent of Christ's healing of our nature, it's as cosmic and universal as the extent of Adam's sin, and that's why Jesus is able to rescue people in every state of life, including infants.
Yeah.
That means all the wicked are only resurrected on the basis of Christ.
Yeah, but he also talks about, like, this is applying for people who are in Christ, like this type of resurrection. They receive
so you're saying
like a heavenly nature like his.
So you're saying 1 Corinthians 15 does not extend the scope as wide as Adam's sin?
I believe it extends a scope as wide, but not everybody accepts the salvation of Christ.
I agree with that, but the only way to be resurrected is through Jesus destroying death, because it's our nature. You don't think nature is a universal?
I do think it's a universal, but I don't think that we're, like, inherently immortal, or
I don't believe we are either.
That everyone who rejects Christ fully,
well, you just admitted my point.
Tree of life and be immortal forever.
You just admitted my point.
It's conditional upon being in Christ.
You just admitted my point that if Christ assumed human nature, and if human nature is universal, then he resurrects all human beings on that basis. That's what Irenaeus says recapitulation is.
Okay. I mean, I agree that everybody gets resurrected, and...
On what basis?
Anyone who gets resurrected has to be on the basis of God's power, because in him we live and move and have our being.
Where in the New Testament is
But
there
for
any
that to continue on for an entire eternity, I don't think is
So, are you aware of
rewarded to those who reject
does
God
Maximus
fully.
teach so you don't believe the Orthodox position that Maximus lays out? Are you Orthodox or
No,
Protestant?
I'm not. I'm Protestant.
That's the problem, is that you have a Western idea that Christ did not assume human nature, but human nature is a universal thing, and that's why the scope in 1 Corinthians 15 is everybody. And you're just saying that God arbitrarily just resurrects the wicked for what?
To destroy them and give them the just punishment.
Where
of
is there
death,
any
because
evidence
the wages
that
of sin is death.
where is there any evidence there's a resurrection that's not based on Christ's work?
It is based on God's power.
No, Christ's work. What did you already said? Christ assumed human nature, and you called it a universal. I don't think you know what that means. So, where is there any evidence of a resurrection that is not based on the work of Christ defeating death in our nature?
I guess, can you show me where it says that the wicked are raised in Christ? I'm
1 Corinthians
asking.
15 says that all human beings are raised in the same way that all human beings experienced death on the basis of Adam's sin. So it's just as wide as the scope of Adam's. And you're saying, no, it's not. It's only for Christ. Oh, so did Adam only extend the death to certain people or to everybody? The scope is as wide as Adam.
It extends to everyone, just like sin did.
Exactly. So the scope of Christ's saving the nature extends as wide as Adam's sin. That's the argument of 1 Corinthians 15. That's why all men are resurrected, even the wicked.
Okay.